Would I just say that you should all be smarter? We don't know how you could be smarter. We don't know anything about how to improve intelligence, and I suppose we don't really know anything about how to improve industriousness either. But I can tell you that people who are industrious come up with a strategy for solving the problem that's ahead of them. If you want to know something about yourself, sit on your bed some night and say to yourself, you want to be this, like you want to be this right. This is no game. This what one thing I'm doing wrong that I know I'm doing wrong, that I could fix, that will food service. You meditate on that, you get an answer, and this won't be one you want, but really necessary one. In this video, we explore some of his best kept secret for maximizing focus and achieving long-term success, so that you can study smarter, not harder. Now, I often tell people to fix the thing you repeat every day. Because people tend to think of those as trivial, right? You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, and you have your routine that you go through every day, where those probably considered 50% of your life. And people think, well, they're mundane and I don't need to pay attention to them. No, that's absolutely wrong. The thing you do every day, those number thing, important thing you do, hands down. All you have to do is do the arithmetic. Well, an average of 35,000 decisions every single day can eventually lead to a decision fatigue, a state of mental overload that can impede a person's ability to continue making decisions. As psychologists Nathan Summon explained, the more decisions you have to more than fatigue than you develop, and the more difficult it can become. This mental exhaustion can lead to poor choices, procrastination, or even a tendency to avoid decisions altogether. One effective way to reduce decision fatigue is by simplifying daily routine. Set up blending menu in average, maintaining consistent wardrobe, or establishing through habit. Additionally, breaking down complex choices to smaller, measurable steps can make decision making feel less overwhelming, helping individuals conserve mental energy for more important tasks. I can tell you that people who are nurtured come up with a strategy for solving the problem that's help them, and then they do whatever they can do, stick to the strategy. For example, if you sat down today or tomorrow for a couple hours, 3 hours, and you fill in a Google Calendar whatever happen to use with a strategy for studying, and list up when you all your assessment are due, and all of that when you are going to study, to sit down and study, then you won't be in a decision where you have to cram for 10 hours a day, constantly right before an important exam. It is a very effective way of studying, by the way. I mean, first of all, people who cram for 10 hours say they're studying for 10 hours, but they really are, because I can't study for 10 hours. I don't have the power of concentration that would enable me to do that for that long period of time. I can manage about 3 hours of intense lecture activity before I'm ready then. As the public frontiers in human neuroscience. First, by learning, where you study session are spread out over time can be twice as effective as math learning. This will enhance memory retention and recall by encoding information long-term memory. Research consistently show that students who spend out their studying perform better on assessment taken weeks later compared to those who cram. In addition to by learning, getting enough sleep plays a crucial role in learning and memory. According to the Sleep Foundation, sleep deprivation hinders the brain's ability to create new pathways for recently learned information, making it harder to retain knowledge. And it's also the case that if you study in the sleep and study in the sleep and study in the sleep, you spy it out, then you are much more likely to remember. It is so much more likely that you much more likely to remember if you try to recall the material, and so highlighting that sort of things isn't very useful, but reading, closing the book, summarizing what you read without reading the damn book, that's useful. And the reason for that is that you're practicing remembering, and that's what you have to practice. If you're practicing memorization, you have to practice memory. You don't just go over the thing you over and over. Then it will help you with recognition memory, but I won't help you but with recall memory. The best thing you can do is read and write every day. Couple hours write about things you find important and see if you can discover what you believe to be true, and that it will build a foundation, and it's been believably practical. Research believes by Jackson V. was start from record young university explore how reading literary fiction and has a person ability to understand others as skill known as theory of mind. This refers to the human capacity to recognize that others have to believe in the size different from their own. In the study, participants were divided into groups and studied different reading materials. Afterward, they took a test measuring the ability to perceive others' emotion. The results show that those who read literary fiction score significantly higher than those who did not read it. Oh, so what seems to happen is story, and that's the distill. So there is. So they watch people, but we watch people, and then they tell story about what they see, but they leave out a lot of old story, everything that's boring, hopefully, and then one more story about starting things again, set up otherwise, and then maybe a question writer come along there write something really interesting, profile character information, and then you will say, well, that's fiction, and then you will say that's not true because it's fiction, but then maybe that's not right. Maybe it's more than true because you want the truth. The truth is mundane reality. You're already got that matter. What you want is the distillation of interesting experience, and you think where is interesting, where the answer is you don't know. That's the thing that's so cool. When you think about behavior, you learn to think about voluntary behavior, but a motivational style will. This habit are activated depending on the situation. Automatic response for so for example, when you food deprived and you start to think about food and start to organize your behavior toward the food as and to perceive the world that where you start body also prepare for food. And so it's useful to think about a motivated state at a micro personality. According to article from Cognizant today, titled the scientific truth behind fake it till you make it. Mental imagery and actual perception share common neural circuits, though they have different firing dynamics. This phenomenon is explained by house law, which states that neurons that fire together wire together. In other words, connection through repetition and association. For example, if someone repeatedly visualizes themselves speaking confidently in public, their brain starts to reinforce the same neural pathways used in actual public speaking, potentially improving their real life performance. Even when you're just walking to where you are to go, if you're successfully walking there, your brain charts what you're doing. The circuits that you are validated while you are doing it, and if you want to do it, result in the result you desire. Then the dopamine flow that's the neurons that activate and then making them grow and flourish. So as you are practicing something let's work in the circuit that's activated as you are practicing this but the dopamine and then that dopamine is stronger and that feels good. It's growth. It's part of positive emotion. And so the positive emotion and more you forward but also encourage you to develop a habit of that practice. And so one of the things I would really emphasize, don't make a habit of pushing things that are good for you because you build that into what if you become addicted to something you build a little monster inside you that grow is the after one goal just live by everything else not a good outcome. In order to withstand suffering, let's say, like such true, something, some meaning, well, okay, but that's mean a much of thing, doesn't mean that, by the way, if you overcome suffering, is by making the suffering into something meaningful and done, metaphysically, I mean, theoretically, you make a mistake, because suffering, you learn something about it, you don't make a mistake again. And I started on website writing with 258 participants. Researchers found that those encouraged to embrace this discomfort, feel this achievement that will likely to expressive strolling into their daily life compared to those who are simply to focus on tasks. But saving negative barriers as a side process is particularly motivating when positive motivation are delayed and discomfort is immediate. This is a life suffering at this. It's a lie. Why let something because you are wrong? Who cares? Make it you suffer, who cares? So even if you run a little scream in the world, efficient passion, negative emotion, it indicate that you're wrong. And that's terrible in some sense because almost every way, mean that to learn requires pain. Now I don't believe that. Exactly because people who are curious, and to go and be curious into anything can be very exciting. And so what you seem to be in there's a right of learning that's too fast and that's not you. That's what make you cry. But if you get the right, you just right, you're just opening up enough on a novelty so that you can benefit from the possibility, not give you a dopamine kit for the mentally. You can benefit from the possibility without being overwhelmed by the extrovert element of it. You can tell what happens. That's one of the coolest thing as far as I am concerned.